and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Megan and I post stylish, sustainable living tips here on YouTube every week, including like today's video, vegan recipe tutorials. This video is going to be just a recap of what I eat in a week at home as an at-home vegan. This was a pretty typical week for me eating at home, so you're going to kind of see what it's like in a day in the life of eating as me as an at-home vegan. I'm a pretty experienced home cook, so some of the recipes might appear a little bit complicated to a beginner, but it turns out so delicious, and I'll be sharing all of the links to recipes from other creators that I use in this video in the description below. So let's just jump right into it. I started my week with some avocado toast. I had some really ripe avocados that looked great, so I just mixed them with garlic powder, onion powder, olive oil, and lime, and spread that on top of some bread. I also added some arugula on top. It adds a nice bitter finish that I like, as well as some sesame seeds. For lunch that day, I heated up a leftover piece of Thai flatbread pizza. I love this recipe. It's got tofu, peanuts, carrots, cabbage. It is super delicious and just as good the next day. For dinner that night, I wanted to use up some leftover mushrooms that I had cooked the night before for a roast Wellington, and I wanted to repurpose that into something totally different. So I decided to make a mushroom pasta bake. To start off this mushroom pasta bake, I added some plant-based milk and cream cheese into a pan and reduced that down into a nice creamy sauce. Into this cream, I also added some fresh garlic, mustard, and whisked that all together and let it reduce for about 20 minutes on the stove. If it's still too loose, you can make a slurry kind of roux, and that'll just thicken it up. Once the sauce was ready, I tossed in all of those mushrooms as well as some frozen peas, because who doesn't love frozen peas? And then I made my noodles to go along with it. Once the noodles were done, I added that into the sauce and mushroom mixture, stirred it all around so everything was evenly coated, and then I put it into a greased baking pan, which I put into the oven for about half an hour. And it'll come out looking like this beautiful, crispy, golden brown pasta bake dish. It is so yummy and a great way to use up leftovers. On Tuesday, I had a pretty simple day of eating, if I'm gonna be honest. I started my day with some toast and butter, as well as a couple of clementines, because those are super in season right now and at every store in Germany. My cat loves when I eat toast and butter for breakfast. He cleans off my plate every time. He looks so happy when he does it. It's just his favorite morning routine. For lunch the next day, I had some leftover marinated tofu that I used for the pizza 2 days before, and so I wanted to also repurpose those leftovers rather than throw them out. With my leftover marinated tofu, I decided to make a quick Asian noodle salad. In this Asian noodle salad, I used chopped celery, chopped onion, and then the tofu. I let the onions and celery saute together for about 10 minutes before I added the tofu. In the other pan, you see I'm cooking my noodles there. Those are soba noodles or buckwheat noodles. Fortunately, the camera gets a little fogged up as the water is boiling, so sorry about that. I added in some red cabbage that was in my fridge and I wanted to use up, and stirred that all together. I also had a leftover kind of soy hoisin dipping sauce that I used for some Vietnamese pancakes, and I was going to use that as the sauce for my pasta salad. So I just poured over that hoisin soy sauce with the noodles, stirred it all together so everything was nice and evenly coated, and what a delicious kind of clean out my fridge lunch that turned out to be. I've gotten a few vegan cookbooks for gifts recently, including the one that you see here by Rachel Amma. I'll link to it below. And tonight I'm trying a new recipe, which is a harissa, fennel, and plum tomato 1-tray bake. This recipe was actually super easy. You basically just cut everything up, lay it on the tray, squeeze some lemon and lemon zest over the top, and toss it with harissa. Then you bake all that together, and ooh boy, is it delicious. It was honestly really straightforward and really easy and turned out super delicious. On Wednesday, I had a super simple breakfast, just some toast with butter. For lunch on Wednesday, I just heated up some of my leftover fennel bake that I had made the night before, and oh, what do you know? Ate it with bread. I'm turning German by the day. For dinner that night, I decided to make a chickpea and cauliflower curry similar to a chana masala. As the base of all of my curries, I typically steep my coconut milk. I steep my coconut milk for about 2 hours with a handful of curry leaves, a few bay leaves, cardamom pods, as well as fenugreek seeds. This really helps the flavor develop and serves as an amazing base flavor for your curry. I let my onions, garlic, and ginger kind of sweat together in the pan for about 5 minutes, and then I add in my curry powder and turmeric powder. By putting them directly onto the pan surface, you release some of those oils and fragrances which are perfect for the curry. So I leave that in for about a minute, and then I pour in my steeped coconut milk and let it all simmer together for approximately half an hour. To make your curry a little bit nuttier, which I think works perfectly with this style of masala, I typically add in a scoop or 2 of either cashew butter or almond butter. Stir that all together and let it simmer. It'll start to thicken up and you'll see it kind of makes a nice kind of thick gravy sauce. While the curry base is cooking, I go ahead and prep and roast my cauliflower. So to do that, I just cut them up into small pieces, covered them in some curry powder and olive oil, and put them in the oven for about 20 minutes until they were kind of fork tender. I also adjust my flavors at this time by adding in some lime and salt or whatever else the curry might need. Once the gravy for the curry is ready, I pour in a can of chickpeas as well as my roasted cauliflower, stir it all together, and serve it alongside a helping of rice as well as some naan that I found at my local Asian grocery store. I was pretty full from 2 helpings of curry the night before, so this morning I didn't really eat a whole lot. I ate a mango and some tea, and that was pretty much it for my breakfast. And for lunch, whoop, you know I'm eating that curry again. I also had a nice glass of fruit juice in the afternoon as a snack. For dinner tonight, I was craving Mexican food, so I made a vegan mole enchiladas. There's a lot of components in enchiladas, so you kind of need to make each component separately and then combine them all and bake them together as enchiladas. So to start, I made my red sauce, which includes tomato sauce, tomato paste, fresh garlic, a whole ancho chili pod, a couple of scoops of mole paste, oregano, and cumin. I let all of those ingredients simmer together in the pot for about half an hour to 45 minutes. I also simply roast some sweet potatoes in the oven for about 15 minutes until they're a little bit soft. While that's cooking, I also make my rice and prepare all of my ingredients for my filling. Inside the filling for these enchiladas are raw red onions, a can of black beans, jalapenos, or in this case pickled jalapenos because that's all we had, red peppers, your roasted sweet potatoes, your rice, and then a couple of scoops of your finished sauce. I stir all of that together and then get ready to stuff them inside of my tortillas. In this case, I'm using wheat tortillas because corn tortillas aren't as good for baking. They tend to fall apart a little bit more, but the flavor of corn tortillas is better, so feel free to use those. In my tortillas, I put a couple of scoops of the filling and then just kind of squeeze it shut as if you're folding together a little taco, and line that up in my pan, which I make sure has some oil in it so the tortillas don't stick to the bottom. I typically just use my whole pack of tortillas, in which case I make 8 of these full enchiladas, and that roughly fills up the bowl. Now it comes for covering it with the sauce. Make sure all of the corners of your pan are covered. This is really going to prevent the tortillas from drying out too much. And then I cover it with a little bit of vegan cheese. These turn out so delicious. I absolutely love these enchiladas, and they're really filling, and it's a great size portion, so you can have it for a couple of people or a small dinner party, as well as leftovers the next day. On Thursday, I again was pretty full from the night before, so I just had some clementines for breakfast. For lunch that day, I just had some avocado mash on toast. I did the exact same thing as the first avocado toast you saw in this video, but this time I put tomatoes instead of arugula. For dinner that night, I am trying another new recipe from one of my cook's books. This one is from Gaz Oakley, and we are making a French onion soup. Since Gaz is another YouTube creator, I'm not going to do a full tutorial here. You can go and visit his YouTube channel if you want to see this. But basically you just caramelize your onions, you let them reduce, then you add in wine, stock, flour, some herbs, and really just let this all simmer down together for about 30 minutes. Since soup isn't super filling, I decided to make a tray of brownies that night. Similar to the soup, I followed the recipe of a fellow creator almost exactly, which I will link to in the description below. I serve it with a nice vanilla cashew crema, which I will also include in the description below. Oh, would you look at that? For breakfast, I'm having toast with butter again. For lunch on Friday, I was meeting up for a small picnic lunch with a friend, so I wanted to bring a easily transportable salad. I pulled out my handy cookbook from Gaz Oakley again and decided to make a raw root vegetables salad. In this salad, there is raw celeriac, raw carrot, raw beet, and raw radish. For the dressing of this, it is like a citrus poppy seed vinaigrette, and you let it sit in the fridge for about 15 minutes before eating it so that the flavors can really soak into those raw vegetables. This was super tasty and healthy lunch and very easily transportable for my picnic. For dinner that night, I am making a vegan mushroom dan dan noodles. This is like a Chinese noodle dish that I really like. You start by hard searing some mushrooms to give them that nice meaty flavor. Once those are ready, I added in some chopped bok choy and chopped onion. I let all of those saute together for a few minutes, and then I crumbled over some frozen tofu. I find that frozen tofu crumbles really easily, and so when you don't need a lot of texture, it's perfect in a dish like this. I also add in a couple handfuls of chopped walnuts, which give this a nice crunch. While all of that is kind of sauteing together, I made a hoisin-based sauce. In my sauce is hoisin, tahini, agave, or any kind of vegan sweetener, soy sauce, rice vinegar, ginger oil or fresh ginger, and then I whisk all of that together. Once the tofu, mushroom, onion mixture is all ready to go, you pour the sauce over, stir it together so it does create that little bit of a thick consistency, and you are ready to go and top it on some noodles. Once again, I used soba noodles here. Those are buckwheat noodles. I think they work really well and they're easier to work with than things like rice noodles. For the next day, well, I bet you can guess what I had for breakfast. It is toast with butter, and I also had a nice glass of fresh juice. For lunch the next day, I had enchiladas. Reheated enchiladas do kind of lose some of their texture, so it becomes almost like an enchilada bowl, and it is equally as delicious. For dinner this night, I was making quinoa kofta meatballs to go with a creamy fenugreek sauce. Inside the filling for these meatballs was quinoa, beluga lentils, some herbs and seasoning, as well as a brick of tofu. I rolled that mixture into some lovely meatball shapes like you see here, and then baked that. For the fenugreek sauce, it's just simply onions sauteed with ginger and garlic, and then a sizable helping of fresh ground fenugreek over the top, as well as coconut milk. We let all of that reduce together into a nice thick sauce, which we then pour over our browned crispy meatballs. Top it with a little bit of fresh cilantro and green onions, and you've got yourself a filling, hearty, delicious vegan meal. Thank you so much for watching What I Eat in a Week this January 2021. I hope this provided some inspiration about creative ways that you can try new recipes and utilize your leftovers. If you enjoyed seeing what I'm cooking up here at home, please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel. That would mean so much to me, and I can't wait to share more vegan home cooking recipes with you in the future.